people who are at home listening? What can we do to get more involved? There's a lot of talk about the ideas. What can we do to help fight for our liberty today?
Irina first. What can young people do to get involved?
Well, there's lots of things. Primarily, Students for Liberty has been running regional conferences all over the United States this year. There's 2 left. One of them is actually here at Drexel University on November 7th, which is in a week and a half. There's going to be all of the greatest leaders, students, activists here all together celebrating liberty, discussing these issues, and thinking about how they can change the world for liberty.
Jeff, you devote your professional work to bringing young people into the liberty movement. Where can this young man and his friends go?
Most definitely. Students for Liberty is a great organization. Young Americans for Liberty is the organization I run, the continuation of Students for Ron Paul. And our purpose is education is a great tool. That's step 1, recruiting young people to our message, grasping these ideas. But the question is now, what do we do with these ideas? What do we do? How do we take action? And that's where Young Americans for Liberty comes in. We train young people to get involved in the
What do we do and how do we
process.
take action, Alexander?
The important thing is just to go out there and start something. Get the word out in a way that's not happening already. Whether that's starting your own student group, start a new nonprofit organization, start a blog, get the message out to more individuals, be a leader for liberty in today's world. The problem before 2 years ago was that no one was standing up and speaking out for these ideas. The reason the Student Movement for Liberty is so powerful right now is that students are taking charge of their campuses. They're starting to actually speak out in favor of these ideas, and that's how we're going to make this even bigger.
Sir.
Judge, I've been following a lot of political analysts lately, and
A little louder and slower.
I've been following a lot of political analysts lately, and I've noticed that some people like Igor Panarin and Gerald Celente are saying that there's a good chance that America will divide up into several smaller countries. Do you think that's likely? And if it's likely, is it a good thing?
Jake Hornberger, do you think we will divide up into smaller countries? Do you think this Rick Perry is serious? The governor of Texas and the state of Texas will secede?
I think it's a fun debate, but the possibility of that happening, I think, is pretty non-existent.
You know, it's interesting. One of the great modernist big government liberals, George Kennan, actually wrote a scholarly piece arguing that the United States should be split up into about 5 or 6 sovereign entities so that, as Ronald Reagan would say a generation later, you could vote with your feet. The reason that question is asked, where's the young man who asked it? The reason you have asked that question is because the states have lost their sovereignty. The states used to have such different laws that if you didn't want to live in the People's Republic of New Jersey, sorry, John Corzine, you came to Pennsylvania, where America begins. But with the federal government federalizing everything, with it going to the states and bribing them, we'll pave Route 80 if you change these laws. There is so little difference among the states, it's hard even to use the words sovereign and state in the same sentence. Take the microphone.
Right now, it looks like the relationship between the state governments and the federal government is a Stockholm syndrome.
Very nicely put. Very nicely put. They enjoy being beaten up. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Judge, when I'm out on campus...
Pericles, what a name.
Thank you, sir. When I'm out on campus with the Student Liberty Front and we're talking about wars, oftentimes a lot of people bring up the drug war, and that's something that's overlooked a lot, and I feel like even on our own segment, we kind of overlooked the drug war.
People should not be afraid. Jake Hornberger, or one of you mentioned it at the end. People should not be afraid to say that you have the right to put into your body whatever you want. It doesn't mean you want to do it. It doesn't mean you do break the law. It means that you recognize that your body is your temple and you own it, not the government. And it's none of the government's business what you put in your body. Aside from that is the 50 billion with a B drug war. That's tax dollars wasted every year, and the lives wasted in jails, and the loss of life in the streets, because when the government makes something illegal, people will still get it. It'll just cost more, and they'll commit crime in order to get it. Great question, Pericles. Thank you. Sir.
We've seen recently a bunch of states, I believe like 27, pass resolutions asserting their 10th Amendment rights, as well as you talked earlier about nullification. California right now, going back to the drug war, is bringing about bringing up for vote legalizing and taxing marijuana. But with that, we're seeing a large growth in state activism and states trying to come back and wrangle in the federal government that they created. I wonder if you guys could talk about the importance of local government and state government and how students can get involved in those and why they should care about that more than the national.
Jay Kornberger.
Well, there's a professor at George Mason University, Walter Williams, who made an interesting proposal a few years ago where he said that when the federal government starts imposing these mandates and conditions and threats, that what the state officials ought to do is have all their citizens send their income taxes to the state government, and when the federal government starts complying with the orders of the state officials, that will be the time when they'll get their income taxes. I found it would be an interesting proposal.
The resolutions for state sovereignty, in my view, are toothless. They are just resolutions. The states really need to do things to challenge the government, like prohibit the federal government from serving search and arrest warrants inside the state without the permission of local law enforcement, prohibiting local law enforcement from enforcing federal laws. The feds simply lack the manpower and the resources to do it. And my favorite, even though this has been unconstitutional since McCulloch versus Maryland, taxing federal property within the states. Let's give that a try, and maybe the Supreme Court will look at it again. Look at it differently this time. Now, you got to turn around. Come up here. I want that shirt. I want everybody to see this shirt. One of the greatest human beings in the history of the world. Maybe this young man as well. But von Mises right there, after whom the great von Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama, is named one of the great philosophers for freedom in modern times. Sir, after that introduction.
Yeah, thanks for that. So my question was, a lot of times we hear in mainstream media and places like Michael Moore's movie, they'll often call capitalism, the fault of the crisis. Capitalism, the system of free enterprise and private property. And they always mix it up, it's corporatism and interventionism. And I wanted to ask if you guys thought this was intentional, or are they trying to deceive us, or are they just incompetent and don't understand?
Geez, do we even have capitalism left in this country, Professor Hornberger?
Well, I think that he makes a great point, is that you've got this system of massive welfare statism, interventionism, regulation, and we're all brought up in our public schools being taught that this is free enterprise. Well, this is nonsense. This is the opposite of free enterprise. Free enterprise is the eradication of Social Security, Medicare, taking care of you in other programs, bailouts, stimulus plans, regulations. That's what freedom's all about.
Sir.
I'm from a southern state, and immigration's a big hot topic there. What can we do? Because, we got the 2010 census coming up, and what can we do to make sure that we don't have problems with people taking count in the census that don't actually exist?
I'm going to ask that we not get into that, only because it's divisive amongst people in this room. Some of us believe that the government has no right excluding anybody, that the borders should be open, and this is the land of the free, and anybody that wants to come here ought to be able to come here if we had a government that protected our freedoms. Others believe that it's a drain on society, but that's another topic for another time. Don't be the skunk at the garden party. Go ahead. Last question.
Judge.
Sir.
A couple of months ago, the Student Liberty Front was having a picnic on kind of a public property area in the city. And we had some constitutions that we were handing out, and we were playing football, and some federal officers came up to us and said that we were not allowed to be dispersing material. Now, we weren't bothering anybody, but they said that we had to tell them what time we were going to leave, and they were basically harassing us. And they told us that it was federal land. What kind of authority do they have?
Was the violation playing football or handing out literature?
Dispersing literature.
Imagine that. In America, in 2009, the cops want to tell you you can't pass out a piece of paper to which the cop himself took an oath to uphold as the supreme law of the land.
We reminded them. They didn't seem to care very much.
I'll tell you, as a former judge, I know it is difficult to resist the police with their shields and their guns and their power. But history was written by those who resisted, not by those who went along. Thank you for joining us tonight. From Philadelphia, defending freedom. Stay free, America.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.